Josephine Aguien. Did I pronounce your name? Yeah. We are so fortunate to have her here today, and she will be talking about her personal story as an IPV survivor. So Anna, come on.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure for me to be here, and I have the pleasure to invite Josephine today. The speaker that I'm about to introduce is a woman that I had the opportunity to support and advocate for at the Safe Center of Peel in my role as a client navigator. This individual gained my admiration for her resiliency and continued thriving despite the challenges that she and her children had faced. Josephine is more than a survivor of violence. However, she is an incredible, accomplished woman. She has a degree in nursing and a diploma in film and television broadcasting. She also holds certificates in business, travel, and tourism. And at some point in her life, she ran a catering business and she was about to open a restaurant. She also opened a clothing line and ran a non-profit agency called Survival and Beyond. On her spare time, she enjoys reading, writing, and helping others in the community. Josephine Journeys invites us to reflect on the prevalence of intimate partner violence and the importance of continuing to raise awareness and advocating for change while honoring the incredible strength and resilience of survivors. Please join me in welcoming Josephine to the stage.
Thank you, Anna. That was quite empowering. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. My name is Josephine. Adding on to what Anna said, I'm a mother of 7 and soon to be 8. I am a survivor of intimate partner violence. In the year 2012, I met my ex-husband via social media, and I went to Ghana and married him and conceived and came back and sponsored him to this country. Unfortunately, it seems that the trajectory is for people to get access to Canada, not based on love and marriage. So I was a victim to that kind of circumstance. Upon his arrival, many issues happened in the last 10 years living with him, including many insults, many financial abuse, many degrading of body shaming. I had 2 children prior to marrying him, and coming from a culture where the woman is perceived valuable if she's in a marriage, I was pressured to want to get married to kind of put myself in grace. So I rushed into that marriage and got myself into a pickle there. So 7 and soon to be 8 kids later, I'm back to that same place that I was trying to avoid from the beginning. I find that across our cultures, in the religions, in the ethnicities, women are perceived to identify themselves from the views of men. And I feel that that has impacted us tremendously on a negative way. And it is time that women become unapologetically conscious of themselves, of their strengths, of who they are in society, of the power that they hold in society, and their importance in the existence of all that is. So for me, I got through the insults. I spent years providing for him and his family. He would not work. He would segregate my 2 children, so the children between me and him, and my older ones that came with me to the marriage. He would tell the younger ones to hate the older ones. When I'd ask him to work, he would put me down and tell me that, you know, there's better women out there that have more status, and yet they're very humble to their husbands, so I should hush. And He kept me away from my mother. He managed to convince me that my mother was evil and was a witch and was casting spells on him for him to leave me or for him to die. So even though my mom lived in Toronto and GTA as well, thank you so much. I hadn't seen my mom for 10 years. She hadn't seen her grandkids that was between us. And he managed to alienate me from all my friends. And he managed to shut down every single dream that I was embarking on. So Anna mentioned the catering. I was making shito, which is like this really spicy African sauce. I was taking it to restaurants and I was taking it to African grocery stores and it was selling out. And he would say the worst possible things and eventually I would put a stop to it. I started a clothing line with his name and his image so that he'd be more involved with it. And even with that, eventually, because we're taught that the man is the head. And being married as a woman, you always want to consult the man before you take action. Even though you're phenomenal and you're incredibly smart, even smarter than him, somehow you have to seek permission from him to do all the wonderful things that you're innately built to do. So this is my idea, this is how much I have, this is what I want to do, you're on board because you're not working, and when I want to work, you shut it down. So let's start a business because we have lots of children to take care of, to build a future for. And you'd be like, yeah, I'm on board. And before you know, he slowly starts shutting me down by first pulling away and then telling me that I'm stupid, that I'm overdoing it, that I should know my place as a woman. And then eventually I'd stop. Then I end up in debt. And because I spent so much money on the idea that I had. And this went on for 10 years. And let me tell you, I have spent so much money on him and his family. And I got to this place where I was sinking. I was losing my self-identity. Because I was not living my truth. I was not living my authentic self. I was living by someone else's idea of me, or someone else's idea of how their wife should be, and I was just dying inside. I was in a robotic state where I knew I had children, I knew they had to eat, I knew I had to change diapers, I knew I had to get them to school, but I was not able to, there was no peace. There was no place of inspiration anymore. It was just a robotic state. And I feel like even though I only got maybe 2 or 3 actual contact of violence, the ones that are mental, psychological, financial, is the silent killer. Because they slowly alienate you from all the people that truly love you. Then they slowly alienate you from yourself. Then they give you your identity of who they want you to be. And if you are not living your authentic self, I am telling you, you are a zombie and you're better off dead. Because you now are functioning for somebody else, which is 2 times worse. 1, you're not functioning for yourself, and 2, you're doing the work for somebody else. And I started waking up every day looking out the window, visualizing that I'm flying in the sky. I started waking up every day with massive anxiety attacks. And because there was a spiritual dissonance, something was wrong. I was not living, I was not me. And I kind of remember who I was and in my current reality, and they were not matching. So I woke up with depression and anxiety, and every time I confront him, I say, there's something wrong with this marriage. Oh, the insults will come in, and he has to make sure that I get to that place that I'm so low enough to submit to him. Prayers got involved. I started thinking, talking to myself. I asked myself, is this the reality of marriage that I had for myself before I got married? And the answer was no. My eldest 2 children were mistreated badly in the house. He had made rules, since I'd asked him to pay the hydroelectric bill, he had made rules that every 2 days, my kids were allowed to bath. Not his children that are between us. My eldest two that were not his were allowed to bath every 2 days. He pressured them so much, even with the food that they eat, that my eldest one, at the age of 15, got a job at Canadian Tire so he can take care of himself, so he doesn't have to face the husband. And to the point where my eldest were not allowed in my room. Whenever he's in the living room, they felt very uncomfortable to be there. And then he tried to convince me that my children, the eldest two, were wizards and that they were sent to destroy my marriage, just to get me to hate them. So first my mother, then my children. Eventually he would program the younger ones against me, then I'll be left with nobody. After he has stripped me of all my glory, all my shine, and has left me desolate. I just knew that there was something wrong. And I started praying, and I asked Source, I said, if this marriage is not going to help me reach my highest potential, then please pluck me out of this. Find a way to remove me from this and place me in my highest reality. And the right sort of ideas started coming in. I started reading, I read the Kybalion, the Hermetic Principles, and the law of correspondence as above, so below. And I was thinking, okay, if I'm higher up, does this higher up person approve of this lower me person here? Probably not. And then I read the part on the law of mentality and how the dominant one is able to project their ideology on the lower minds for them to be controlled. And I was like, this is what's happening to me. I'm not living my truth. I'm living somebody else's projection on me. So I started thinking more and more, and I'll ask more questions, and I'll get answers and books, and things will come in, and I got the idea. Get out. What in the world is wrong with you? If this is not working and it's not benefiting you, get out. Why have you allowed society to teach you how you should exist? Get out, live your truth. This is not beneficial for you and your children. I thought to myself, if I am a mother of all these children, am I going to be able to preach to them to be their full potential when I'm not living my full potential? Am I going to be able to tell these daughters of mine to stand up on high grounds and stand up on high tides if I'm not standing up on high tides? Is this how I want my sons to treat their women in the future? All the answers was, heck no, get out. But then you're stuck on trying to please society, because what are you going to do with 7 kids? You're already stigmatized for having 2. Outside of marriage, now you're going to be single with 7, soon to be 8. Who cares what people think? Do you want to keep drinking poison when you know the poison is bad for you? That is the same thing as staying in a toxic relationship when you know it's bad for you. So I started seeking shelter. And let me tell you, that was a trip. Woo. All the shelters were full. And that always set me back to, should I accept this reality then? But then I'll push again and I'll try. And again they were full, and I got the runaround. And luckily, a miracle happened. This lady right here landed on my lap. I don't know how. And she took over everything. She contacted all the shelters with my consent. She put in my profile for them, and she kept me up to date. She referred me to counseling. She gave me the safe plan of pack all your documents, get a little bit of clothes, hide it away from the house, set it aside, and be normal. And she kept contacting shelters and shelters. And one day she calls and she says, if you can make it in 2 hours, there's a shelter space for you and your children. I was like, what? And then I was scared because I was shifting realities now. I was leaving the old reality that didn't serve me and embarking on a new one that I have no idea what's there. but it's going to be a brave new role. So I promised myself I will say yes once a shelter space was available, and I said yes. And took my children, took 4, took the oldest 2 and the youngest, because he would not let me take the middle ones. And what he said to me, and mind you, this is someone that I sponsored, financially provided for him and his entire family back home. What he said to me when I was leaving was, give me the children's birth certificate so I can claim their child tax benefit, and you can go. What? Does it get more revealing than this? Like, so I said, no, not today. No devil. Get behind me. Okay. So I get to the hallway leaving, and he runs after me, and he tried to scare my 14-year-old son, and I said, you're not going to be scared. Stay where you're standing. And he went after him to punch him, and I came in and I took the hit, and he realized that I was not afraid of him anymore, and none of the children were afraid of him anymore. So he ran to the room in what looked like he was about to get a kind of weapon. So I entered in the room, kept my 4 outside, and locked the door behind me, and stood between him and the door. And I said, you're not going back outside. And I called the police, and I said, I think there's going to be domestic violence. Please get here. He then calmed down. I had to leave my middle 3, and I took my 4. And we went to the shelter. The police called. They said, can you come back so we can analyze the case? I said, no, you can meet me at the shelter. I'm sorry, I am not looking back, but I will come back for my other children. And then I was in the shelter. And one beautiful thing about working with the Safe Center of Peel was the fact that I didn't have to go through all that anxiety of calling all these various organizations. It was like a collective thing where Anna handled all of that for me so that I can focus on healing. That really helped me. Anyway, landing in the shelter was another one. The food was horrible. Yeah, sometimes it was not even cooked well or somehow rotten, etc. And then the OW had deducted my money because I was no longer paying rent, and I was going to be provided for in terms of food. But the food was one cultural way, whereas it did not reflect the various cultures that existed in the shelter. So a lot of us couldn't eat the food, and it spoiled really fast. And I had a tiny little fridge, I couldn't fit nothing in there. And the kids started getting sick because we're all cooped up in one room, and it started getting moldy, and I had barely any money for food, and we were starving, I was pregnant, I was miserable. And friends, I decided to open up to friends. And they came in and they started bringing me food every weekend, and I shared the food with the other shelter people because I know they were struggling. Yeah, so we formed a community, the people there. And I think that a lot of shelters should also consider having like a group session, group counseling, because I realized that when we formed friendship, we drew on strengths from each other and we encouraged each other. We formed a community. One thing that I realized going forward was that no matter what situation you're placed in, everything is a test. Even if you're the highest or the lowest level of the ladder, every spot you're placed in is a test. And we have to lead with humanity first. There was a lot of mistreatments at the shelter towards a lot of the people, especially the refugees, and they felt that they couldn't speak up because they had no options. And we had one microwave for about 200 people. And so there was even though the shelter is important because it gives you a place to transition to, there was not a lot of convenience. Maybe that's the aim of it, to get you outside as fast as you can. But again, a lot of people are coming to shelters with trauma. So we have to exercise empathy at all levels. I would like to read this quote from the Knowledge Book. This is one of the greatest books that really set me off course, or on course, and really elevated my consciousness. It is written by, or transmitted by, Bulin Korak, and by the Mevlana Essence Nucleus Group, and it says, "You have regulated your life not according to yourself, but according to others. Your frustrations are due to this. This attitude of yours obstructs your universal channels. No one is a servant to anyone else. Mutual respect is imperative." So as all of you are in here, and I'm sure all of you have very important roles, I feel that even though there's a lot of social structures in place to help humanity, they always say prevention is better than cure. If we can get back to the root cause of all these societal problems, perhaps then we can move forward into fixing it. Because everything that we're providing now is just a patch on a wound, whereas we can prevent the wound itself from ever happening. I feel that humanity is a bit backwards in the evolution because a lot of us don't lead with our hearts anymore. We lead with a checklist, we lead with robots, we lead with things that are not related to the essence spirit. Nobody relates to themselves, nobody has empathy for one another. And it exists in the homes and it exists in the macro structures. You can see all around the world there's nations fighting, and in the homes there's husbands and wives fighting and mistreating each other. Perhaps there's something very fundamentally missing that we need to address, and perhaps the education system is not doing their best. Maybe they're too focused on creating corporate slaves that we're not focused on actually studying the human being. Who is the human being? What is the purpose of the human being? What is the potential of the human being? What is our goal as a collective consciousness? If we're able to tap into this, perhaps we can solve so much of the problems that we're facing. Because it feels like humanity has some form of an autoimmune disease where we are attacking each other. And as it exists at the microscopic level, you can see it at the macroscopic level. So there's something fundamentally wrong that we all need to come together. Not the 1%, all of us in our beautiful diversity. This room is gorgeous. Gosh, the diversity, I love it. In our beautiful diversity, we all need to come together and have that common goal for humanity. Maybe we shouldn't spend so much money on robots and technology when we have not even tapped into what this biological computer really is about and what our full potential is and what our place is in the universe. I feel that if we're able to tackle this, there'll be less violence because we'll understand each other, because I feel like the whole world is having a spiritual dissonance. We don't know who we are, we don't know what we're doing, we don't know where we're going as a collective. So if we can lead with love, if we can lead with our essence spirits, if we can understand that we're an atomic whole, and that there's literally no separation between all of us, then maybe we can make some really progressive stuff happen for humanity. And maybe our homes will be more peaceful, maybe our communities will be more peaceful, maybe our nations will be more peaceful. So if we're all social workers, I feel like we should focus on the preventative measures rather than the patch on the wound. Again, what is in place is still very great because it helped me and my children get a place to stay. But I'm just saying that we can do better. And we should really go with our hearts. We should really love one another enough to find out what our common grounds are and push towards a brighter future. I thank you for your time. I hope I said something right.
That you may have to Josephine. The volunteers will bring a microphone.
Any questions or comments about what you heard from Josephine? Beautiful, beautiful address. Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. It was really nice to hear where you are now, and thank you for sharing your story. How is your children's status? Are you with all of them now, or what is that like?
3 days after I got my other three, and we were all in the shelter together, and now we all live in Brampton in a very beautiful townhome, and we're very pleased with that.
There's a couple back there.
So I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for being resilient. Thank you for speaking up. As a CEO of shelters, I would echo many of what you're saying is true. I'm newly appointed to the shelter system, so I'm able to see what many folks have encountered on throughout your journey. Is it easy? Absolutely not. And just, I often want to put myself in a position where I actually was hurt, where it's hard. You have children and you have to uproot your children, and being in a place where you're relying solely on a person for food, for bed. It's hard as a mother. And, it does take a spirit of resilience to fight back in order to persevere to get out of that situation. Are there days that most folks will feel depleted? Yes. Food, it's a thing. Being protective, it's a thing. You want to make sure your children are safe. But I'm saying this to say, thank you for being a voice. Thank you for being a voice for yourself, your children, and for many of the women who experience what you've experienced. Because as I said, at this point, shelters are at capacity. And many of, and if not all of what she's saying is true. And as a society, we need to do better. We need to be more open. And we need to also to continue to humanize folks as they're going through transition. So, thank you.
Thank you too.
I think there were a couple more questions or comments. Vanessa?
Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Because it's something to be celebrated that you got out of the situation and you're thriving. And it's a wonderful example for your children to see. So congratulations on that. The lawyer in me just needs to know, did you go to court and have you gotten custody of your children? I need to know.
I'm working on it. So there's the Legal Aid Society that Anna and Jagridi, is it? Helped send the links and all the process on how to get legal aid. So I did that, and I'm working with a legal aid lawyer to get custody of the children. Thank you.
Josephine.
Hi.
Hi. I just wanted to say thank you for being an inspiration for all of us. There's a comment and a question, so I guess I just wanted to admire, acknowledge, and be inspired by, we all have trauma, we all have struggles. I don't know that we all come through it as gracefully and with as much integrity and honor as you have. So I think the question I'd like to ask on behalf of all of us is, if you could give us one thing to hang our hat on to do better than we did yesterday, excuse me, what would it be?
I said earlier that we're an atomic whole, which literally means that we are reflections of one another. If you take a light bulb and you put, say, a glass, and the light reflects through the glass with all the different colors and all the different hues, etc. This is us, but we're coming from that one light bulb. So if you're doing something, anything that you do, understand that the next person next to you is you in another manifestation. If you think like that, then you will do everything with more diligence and more care. That's why even in the biblical stuff, the prophet of the Bible said, love thy neighbor as yourself. It literally means that your neighbor is yourself. So lead with that, and you can hang your hat on that.
All right. Oh, one more. We'll take one more question or comment.
Again, I just want to commend you for sharing your story with us. I just have two questions, actually. You said something that really resonated with all of us, I think, and that's the point about living your life for other people. Now, I know you stayed in this situationship because of what you think other people might think about you if you left your husband. And being a single mom is like a stigma. So, my question to you is, congratulations that you were able to look beyond that and do what's best for you and your family. Second part is, after thinking back and reflecting, is there anything that you would have done differently in that situation?
I would have left sooner. I have a friend that's going through a similar situation, and she's actually divorced, and she spends more time being angry about the fact that she can't get the man back. And I say to myself, and I say to her too, whether she'll take it or not, I say to myself, I've already spent 10 years. Am I going to spend the next 10 years being bitter? That is such a time waste. Like this 100-year span is so priceless. I've already wasted so much of it, 10 segments of it, and it's just too much for me. I'm not going to spend more time being angry, being resentful. It's just what that is.
Okay, I don't think there's any more questions or comments, but I wanted to end this section by saying thank you so much, Josephine. It's a real honor to get to know you. And Anna, I've heard like nothing but great things about the work that you've done with Josephine, and thank you for all your hard work and dedication to survivors across Peel Region. So thank you.
Anna's amazing. If there's a definition of a genuine human, someone who really feels and work on how she feels, this lady right here. She took my pain. She was crying with me. She brought the tissues. She's amazing. Anna's a genuine human. I appreciate you.
So much. Thank you. Do you mind me asking, Josephine, do you know?
Nobody seems to figure it out. And either they said, you haven't eaten enough, so the baby's sleeping and not moving, so we can't tell. And then the other time I ate, they said, oh, the baby's moving too much and hyperactive and we can't tell. I said, I'm just going to go buy white outfits and just... So, sorry. Thank you so much.
Okay, we're going to go straight into our next session, and I'd like to invite Casey.
Wait, do you want your phone back?